My best friend wants to date my mom. Okay, so this is a story I never thought I'd share. It's about my best friend Chet and how he decided, out of nowhere, that he wanted to date my mom. Yeah, you read that right. My mom. Let me give you some context so you can appreciate the full absurdity of this whole situation. Chet and I have been best friends since, forever. We grew up together, went to the same schools, and even ended up going to college together. We were inseparable, and to be honest, it was pretty awesome. That is, until my parents dropped a bomb on me one day. They were getting a divorce. It was tough news to take, but I figured I had Chet to help me get through it. A few months after the divorce, I started noticing Chet making weird comments about my mom. At first, it was just the occasional "your mom's pretty hot" or "I'd totally date her if she were my age," but I just brushed it off as Chet being Chet. You know, the kind of dumb stuff friends say to mess with each other. But then things got weirder. When we went back home for an extended break from school, Chet started spending more and more time at my house instead of his own. It was like he was avoiding his family or something, and I couldn't figure out why. That is, until I realized he was totally flirting with my mom. I'm talking about full-on flirting, like complimenting her looks, laughing way too hard at her jokes, and even helping her out around the house. It was bizarre. I confronted Chet about it, thinking he was just doing it to mess with me or something. He looked me dead in the eye and said, "Kyle, I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I want to date your mom." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I thought he was joking, but he was dead serious. At first, I was furious. I told him he was insane and that he needed to get his head on straight. I couldn't believe he'd betray our friendship like that. But then, after some time to think, I decided to try to understand where he was coming from. I sat down with Chet and asked him to explain himself. He told me that he'd been feeling lonely ever since his own parents got divorced, and he was looking for some stability in his life. He said that my mom was the most stable person he knew, and he couldn't help but be attracted to her. He even said that he thought she was into him too, which was a pretty bold claim considering she was my mom. I didn't know what to say. On one hand, I understood that Chet was going through a rough time, and maybe his feelings for my mom were just a symptom of that. On the other hand, though, this was my mom we were talking about. It felt like a huge violation of our friendship, and I didn't know if I could just let it slide. As the days went by, things got more and more tense between Chet and me. We argued about it constantly, with him trying to convince me that it wasn't that big of a deal and me trying to make him understand how uncomfortable it made me. It felt like our friendship was hanging by a thread, and I didn't know if we'd ever be able to go back to the way things were before. The situation finally came to a head one night when Chet and I were at my house, hanging out in the living room while my mom was in the kitchen. I could tell Chet was itching to go talk to her, but I wasn't about to let him get away with it. I grabbed his arm and pulled him into my room, slamming the door behind us. "Enough is enough, Chet," I shouted. "I get that you're going through a hard time, but this is my mom we're talking about. You're ruining our friendship, and I can't stand it anymore." Chet looked at me with a mix of anger and sadness. "You think I don't know that, Kyle? You think I want to feel this way, but I can't help it, man. I really think your mom could be the one for me." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. In all our years of friendship, I'd never thought I'd be having a conversation like this, but I knew I had to stand my ground. "Chet," I said, my voice shaking, "if you go through with this, our friendship is over. I mean it. You need to choose right now. Is dating my mom really worth losing your best friend over?" We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity. Chet's face went through a whole range of emotions as he wrestled with the decision. Finally, he let out a deep sigh and looked me in the eye. "You're right, Kyle. This is crazy. I'm sorry, man. I don't want to lose you as a friend, and I definitely don't want to cause you any more pain. I promise I'll get my head on straight and put an end to this nonsense." I was relieved to hear him say that, but I knew that it wasn't going to be easy for him. We spent the rest of the break talking through his feelings and trying to find a way for him to move on. It wasn't easy, and there were definitely some rough patches, but eventually, Chet started to see the light. He realized that his feelings for my mom were just a misguided attempt at finding stability in his life, and that he needed to focus on finding that within himself rather than through someone else. As the end of the break approached, Chet and I were finally able to get back to some semblance of normalcy. We went out, hung out with our other friends, and even managed to laugh about the whole situation. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. As for my mom, she was surprisingly understanding about the whole situation. She told me that she knew Chet's feelings were coming from a place of pain and that she didn't hold it against him. She even encouraged me to be there for him and help him through his journey to healing, which I did my best to do. Over time, Chet and I were able to rebuild our friendship stronger than ever. We leaned on each other for support, and we grew as individuals and as friends. The whole dating my mom debacle became a distant memory, a bizarre chapter in our lives that we could now look back on and laugh about. We even made a pact that, no matter what happened, we would never let anything come between our friendship again. Oh, the struggles of having a hot mom. What would you have done if you were in Kyle's shoes? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. When you subscribe, be sure to click the notification bell. Click here for more Tangled threads.